President Reevely, Chancellor Gates, members of the Board of Visitors, students, faculty, staff, parents, and most specifically graduates. Today we gather to acknowledge and celebrate William and Mary graduating class of 2018. Congratulations, you made it. Taylor, thank you for inviting me to be here today, and let me join Bob Gates and others in congratulating you, not only on your great service to William and Mary, but your great service to our Commonwealth and our country. Congratulations. I'm delighted to be back here at William and Mary. I'm delighted to be here in Williamsburg as we stand once again on many milestones of the history of our country and our Commonwealth. It feels like every time we come to Williamsburg, there's another milestone. Next year, we will mark the 2019 commemoration of the 400th anniversary of a number of historic events, both good and bad, that took place in Virginia. From the celebration of our nation's first Thanksgiving to the landing of the first enslaved Africans at Hampton. As you graduate from this institution that's so intertwined in our nation's history, I invite you to be part of this commemoration next year. And whether it's the history of the African American experience, the Virginia experience, or the American experience, it's so important to tell the whole story. The good, the bad, and frankly the ugly as well, to make sure that we're true to ourselves as Americans. But some of those dark chapters also tell the story of some of the greatest triumphs of our time. You've honored the Legacy 3 this morning, and you've heard the incredible accomplishments of Dr. Katherine Johnson. It's special to be here on a graduating day when we honor those trailblazers. So it's been as my time as governor and senator, I've actually had the chance to give a lot of commencement addresses. Although this is the first time I've given the commencement address at William and Mary. So when I give commencement addresses, I try to always remember those extraordinarily wise words of that great British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, who said, and I quote, "Be sincere, be concise, and be seated." So I will offer you graduates 3 quick pieces of advice that I've distilled over my life. So then I'll get out of the way so you can continue this celebration with your family and friends. As Taylor mentioned, I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. I know what it's like to try to make ends meet, not knowing if you could make next tuition. Thank goodness for the student loan program, or I wouldn't have been here. I also know that when I graduated from college many, many years ago, I would be able to do things and go places that my parents only dreamed about. Today, you share that same promise, but also with it comes a responsibility. Your obligation is to strive, to reach, and yes, to occasionally fail. Now, I know on graduation day, the last thing you want to hear about is failure. But the truth is, nobody's life follows a straight line trajectory up. And for me, even though Taylor was kind with his introduction, virtually everything I've tried in my life, I only got to because at one point along that journey, I failed. I remember out of college and law school, I decided a couple years out that I would become an entrepreneur. I took my life savings, $5,000, invested it in a little energy startup company, went to work for that company, and in 6 weeks, I helped that company go totally bankrupt. I then went into real estate. It took me 6 months to fail at that. So at the ripe old age of 26, I was living out of my car, student loans coming due, sleeping on my friends' couches who had all gone to law school at Harvard and doing really well. But uniquely enough, I got another chance. I got involved in the very early days of the cell phone business. Now, this was back in 1982, and I went to all of my law school classmates and said, "Come, invest with me in cell phones." Every one of them said to me, "Warner, you are so crazy. Go get a real job. Who wants a cell phone?" They're all still practicing law. So as Taylor mentioned, I went on, formed a cell phone company called Nextel, started the largest venture capital firm in the Mid-Atlantic. Now, only in America could I have not one, not two, but actually 3 shots. And frankly, that notion that everybody in our country ought to have the chance to have that fair shot, no matter what you look like or where you're born, is still an aspiration we need to meet for every American. The truth is, I didn't just fail in business, I also failed in politics. My first time I ran for anything, I had the audacity to run against John Warner. Now, my name is Mark Warner. That managed to confuse the heck out of all Virginians, Warner versus Warner. The one good thing we had out of that campaign was, honest to goodness truth, we had a bumper strip that simply said on it, Mark, not John. And I was in Danville one day, somebody came up, looked at the bumper strip and said, "Excuse me, sir, is that a biblical reference?" Well, there was no divine intervention. I got second place, but out of that loss came the chance for me to get to know Virginia better, and I earned a great friend, John Warner, who I have enormous respect for. And then when he left this seat, I took it, and in 2014, even though we were at different parties, he supported me. So that notion of trying and failing, but in America being able to get up and try again and strive again, that is so great about our country. So make sure you go out and push the edge a little bit, particularly in these years right after graduation. Now, I recognize that I'm blessed to have the opportunity to have been successful in technology business. And the truth is, technology is changing our society, our economy, our very way of life. As a country, as we navigate these changes, we need to remember our shared responsibility to be active participants in our democracy. And that's my second piece of advice. Use your William and Mary education to be an informed and active citizen in our great nation. You're graduating at a time when our country's political and cultural debates are pretty darn intense. Oftentimes, it seems we live in a nation that engages in way too much confrontation and way too little conversation. And that makes sense. Just look at social media. Social media has supercharged our ability to instantly share every single opinion we have, no matter how good or bad, with everyone in the world. And at the same time, I believe it has made us far too easy to build our own personal echo chambers, where we only consume information that reinforces our own point of view. Today, you graduates can access more information in a single day on your smartphone than your parents or grandparents could access in their whole lifetime. That's why it's so important not to mistake the constant bombardment of information for knowledge. Unfortunately, while we become more connected in some ways, we've become more divided. Now, don't get me wrong. Debating the big issues we face is extraordinarily important, and that's what makes our democracy work. But no one in politics, and I mean no one, has a monopoly on virtue or patriotism or the truth. As a recipient of a William and Mary degree, you have a responsibility to be engaged citizens. That's a powerful thing. You have the power to decide what you read, what you watch, and yes, what you retweet. And you need to be a critical skeptic of the information you receive. You also have the power to decide whether people who serve or aspire to serve in political office have the moral character that we should all expect from our leaders. And frankly, we need leaders with moral character now more than ever. We live in a country, and this institution represents this in so many ways, that was founded on the rule of law. That idea that no person, no matter how high they might rank, no matter how rich they might be, is above the law. But sometimes we've been reminded in recent months that the rule of law can only survive as a pillar of our democracy as long as it survives in the hearts and minds of the American people and their leaders. It is a rich tradition of our democracy, the rule of law. But like all traditions, it can die if we fail to pass it on from generation to the next, if we fail to defend it when it comes under attack, when we choose leaders who lack the moral character to defend our institutions of justice from attack, or worse, who attack these institutions themselves, we run the risk that the rule of law, the fundamental nature of our American tradition, could begin to fade away. So graduates, I ask you to use your power as educated citizens with your William and Mary degrees, to make your voices heard, to stand up for what's right, to demand that your leaders do the same. Because frankly, our democracy depends on it. Now, I know at times when the news comes on, especially these days, and if it's news about Washington, you want to throw a shoe at the TV. I feel the same way, and I'm inside the TV. But please, please don't check out. I don't care whether you're Republican, Democratic, Independent, Libertarian, Vegetarian, whatever it is, we need your voice now than ever, now more than ever, to be engaged in our democracy. So get involved, stay involved, and make the right choices. And now I come to my final piece of advice, and it may be the most important lesson I can leave with you. So listen up. Call your mother. And not just because tomorrow's Mother's Day. Call your mother, call your father, call your grandparents, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wives, sisters, brothers. After this ceremony, seek out that special person who has encouraged and supported you on this journey, and tell them thanks. Go ahead and tell them you love them as well. Don't tweet it. Don't paste it on Facebook. Don't post it on Facebook. Don't simply send them a text. But find that person or call them on the phone and tell them how much you appreciate that. Because quite honestly, the truth is, and you know it, you did not get here alone. You should cherish your friends, your family, as your life depends on it. Because frankly, in a lot of ways it does. So graduates of William and Mary class of 2018, that's it. Always go out and strive. Never be afraid to fail. Please, no matter how messy it is, stay involved in our democracy. And most importantly, never, ever, ever forget to call your mother. Congratulations, class of 2018. Go try.